2015 represents a 30th anniversary of the M9 contract. We went from M9, M9A1, M9A3, skipping the M9A2, but we're joined by Ernie Langdon, who's going to explain to us how that all happened and how we got here. Ernest Langdon comes with a great pedigree and a long resume. Retired U.S. Marine Corps?
No, I didn't retire, but 12 years in the Marine Corps.
12 years in the Marine
Right.
Corps, former Marine Corps then.
Correct.
And firearms instructor and very, very successful shooter. So you know the M9 in the field, off the field, and training people with it.
Correct.
Thank you so much for joining us. Let's start talking about the M9. How did that come about?
So the M9 has a long history with the U.S. military dating back to all the way to 1985. It's actually an evolution of a gun, as you know, that Beretta designed starting in the early 70s, the standard 92. And it was really kind of built to be a military service pistol from the very beginning, is my understanding. So the M9 won the pistol trials back in 1985 and has been the standard sidearm for the U.S. military for the past 30 years.
Now, the M9 that we see today and the M9 that we saw in 1985, they look the same, but they really aren't.
Well, there are some differences internally, yeah, absolutely. Beretta's made some improvements along the way, improved the locking block, improved some of the smaller components that are inside the gun. So the gun that's being produced and delivered to the military now is obviously a better version, but that's just the standard M9, if you will. So you can't really tell the difference when you see the gun, if you will, this being the M9. But there are some differences internally, the improvements that Beretta's made over the last 30 years. So it looks the same, not really the same, much more durable gun than it was back in 1985.
U.S. Marine Corps went from M9 to M9A1, and
Correct.
you've actually used it.
I've used the M9A1 quite a bit. The M9A1 was several improvements over the standard M9. To start with, light rail here, so now we can attach lasers, lights, and things like that. Also, beveled magazine well to speed up the reloads, and checkering on the front and back strap, which not only improves the grip of the gun and gives you a better purchase on the gun as well, but it actually has a tendency to make the gun even feel smaller in your hand because of that texturing or that checkering, if you will. So the M9A1 has several improvements over the M9, but Marine Corps is the only U.S. military service that's buying this particular version.
And currently using it.
And currently using it. The other thing that the M9A1 comes with is a sand-resistant magazine. It was something that the Marine Corps kind of wanted, something that could really withstand current theater operations with sand and dust and so. It's a really, really good improvements on that.
So we went from M9 to M9A1. Now we're talking about M9A3. We had Gabriel DePlano who explained to us what the M9A3 is all about. But give us a rundown and first of all, explain why we went from M9A1 to M9A3. Where's the M9A2?
Well, the M9A2 was a kind of a step in the middle. Beretta suggested that as a model to the military. It never really got any traction years ago, so we kind of needed to take a big step and make much more improvements. So there was kind of an M9A2, but it was never really produced in any bulk. So we had to move on to the next generation because it had a lot of features and didn't want to confuse people with the two different variants.
How does the M9A3 differ from the M9A2? Because I already see a rail and I already see a difference in color, but a lot of small differences. Yeah,
a lot of small differences, a lot of similarities to some of the same things you see in the M9A1 and the M9A2, if you will, but the rail is actually an improved version of the rail. It has a true Picatinny spec on it, so it allows the military stuff to mount a lot easier. Also has the beveled magazine well and the checkering on the front and the back strap, but this one actually has what we call a Vertec grip, so it's a straight back strap and thinner grip panels, so it's a much smaller grip and feels a lot better for people with smaller hands. Also has a dovetail front sight, makes a big difference as well. They're going to come with night sights, improvements internally, which we discussed earlier, oversized magazine release button that's really going to make a difference for speeding up the reloads as well. Also, the M9A3, one of the big unique features is it's going to have a safety letter that's convertible from the FS safety, which we're very familiar with on the M9s, to a G safety, so that it will be a decock only version. So it basically springs back to the fire position. There's also some enhancements on the way this lever is shaped and the angle that it has. So even on the F version of the gun, it actually makes it much easier when someone's actually racking the slide. It's going to make it want to stay in the off-safe position. So if you're doing immediate actions, loading and unloading and stuff like that, you're much less likely to decock the gun and put it in the safe position. Also, the M9A3 is going to come with an extended threaded barrel for suppressor mounting. So big differences between the A1 and the A2.
Some pretty important improvements.
Absolutely.
Now,
Absolutely.
you've used the guns like the M9, the M9A1, you've used them in a lot of situations. Some situations were a little dicier than others.
Right.
You've used it in combat, you used it to win tournaments. You know this gun well.
Correct.
And you've trusted this gun in battle and in the field in tournaments.
In competition quite a bit.
You are a proponent of the double action, and you think
Correct.
it's where it's at. Explain to us why.
So the double action does several things for you. From a tactical standpoint, a gun that you're going to use under duress, a lot of people will have a tendency to get their finger on the trigger when they should not. That double action trigger pull will keep you out of trouble, because really it's the distance that the trigger travels that keeps people out of trouble under duress, not necessarily the weight. A lot of people think, oh, if I have a heavier trigger, that'll keep me from having an accident. That's not really the case. If that your finger's where it shouldn't be, you're going to be in trouble. The other big thing I think with the double action trigger pull is it allows me to be really aggressive to get my finger on the trigger for that first shot when I'm presenting the gun. And that makes a big difference. Whereas if it's a striker fired gun or a single action gun, I have to wait till the very end of a presentation before I can start getting on the trigger, and a lot of people won't wait.
So it's a better trigger to train with, but it's also a better trigger to shoot with.
I think it's a better trigger to shoot with for the type of shooting that you get into in tactical or combat situations for that first shot.
Perfect.
You remember that if you top 5-10% guys, they're going to be good with anything you give them, okay? You have to worry about all the rest of the guys that aren't going to have the training to keep their finger off the trigger when they shouldn't and not have the time behind the gun. So people say, well, they need more training. Well, sure they do. But the reality is the double action trigger pull can work for both ends. If you're a top shooter, doesn't matter. You can shoot anything.
It's a gun for you because obviously you're using it, but it's also a gun for me.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Ernie, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. If I can borrow you for another hour, you can train me maybe back there.
An hour? Really? You need more time than that.
All right, then 8 hours with Ernie, but I'll be back with you guys later on, and we'll show you more products. Ernie, thanks so much. We'll see you guys later. Bye.